Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Folks, every working person should get the full $1,400, deserves the full $1,400. $50,000 a year is not rich. These are the words of Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont. I want to show you some really interesting things that Bernie Sanders has been saying as he makes the case for not lowering the income thresholds for the $1,400 stimulus checks. Take a look at this tweet on your screen from Bernie Sanders. And by the way, the Walton family is the family behind Walmart. He said the Walton family's wealth grew from 2018 through 2021 from $146 billion to $228 billion, and the minimum wage stayed exactly the same. Bernie Sanders says it's a moral outrage that the richest family in America pays workers at Walmart starvation wages. And in another tweet, Senator Bernie Sanders said the budget resolution the Senate passed today, and this was a budget resolution that was passed in the past 48 hours, puts us on a path to finally raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It is a moral imperative in the richest country in the world that no one is forced to live on a starvation wage, and the American Rescue Plan will get it done. Now, folks, you have heard me talk about this before. I believe the $15 an hour minimum wage is unlikely to happen because President Biden himself said so. But I do want to commend Bernie Sanders for pushing for this, even though, look, folks, it may not happen, but you can see where his priorities lie. Now, folks, the reason I'm making this video is, and I want you to watch this video through to the end, specifically a very, very, very important comment from Senator Bernie Sanders talking about not lowering the threshold for the $1,400 stimulus checks, the third stimulus check, part of the $2,000 stimulus check promise from the Biden administration. Folks, let's take a look at this extremely interesting tweet on your screen. And this is actually a comment that's supported by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Unbelievable. There are some Democrats who want to lower the income eligibility for direct payments from $75,000 to $50,000 and also lower the threshold for couples. In other words, working class people who got checks from Trump would not get them from Biden. Brilliant, meaning it's a brilliant strategy. What he's saying, what Bernie Sanders is saying, is that this is a brilliant strategy from the Republicans to try and force less people to get the stimulus checks so that they can get more political mileage going forward and say, hey, we did more for more people. So they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, as far as Bernie Sanders is concerned. And folks, I have to tell you, I look at this as helping those who need it the most, almost like disaster relief, almost like, folks, we're in a national emergency in many parts of the country. Individuals in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality have lost their jobs. And folks, I want you to read this, I want you to check out this super important tweet on your screen from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who says, it would be outrageous if we ran on giving more relief and ended up doing the opposite. It's sad that this is even an argument in the Democratic Party. COVID relief is disaster relief and it's urgent. Our first act out of the gate should be big, bold, and strong, not weaker and smaller. So, folks, let me know in the comment section below whether you agree. And I'm about to show you a very, very important statement from Senator Bernie Sanders, and also comments from Pete Buttigieg, the U.S. Transportation Secretary, and he said something that was very important because he's also echoing what Bernie Sanders is saying. And the reason I'm going to play a clip with the U.S. Transportation Secretary is, folks, because it's very clear that the Biden administration is using different officials and putting them on different television networks to create public support for the stimulus plan, and this can create essentially a big political advantage for them if they can do something that is popular so early on in the Biden administration. And folks, Bernie Sanders is sparing no punches. In an interview today on CNN and also in a tweet, and I'll actually show you the tweet on your screen right here, Bernie Sanders says it is absurd that some Democrats think we should tell a worker making $52,000 a year that they are too rich and cannot get the full $2,000 benefit as promised. It makes no sense to me, nor do I think it makes sense to the American people. Pretty incredible. Let's actually hear from Senator Bernie Sanders. And folks, this is very important because you can see that these lawmakers are going on television to make the case with the American people. Let's take a look at this clip and hear from Senator Bernie Sanders.
One idea being floated in the Senate, included by some Democrats, is to phase out checks for individuals making more than $50,000 a year. You called that proposal unbelievable and said, quote, in other words, working class people who got checks from Trump would not get them from Biden. Brilliant. Obviously, you're being sarcastic there. It's clear you don't support it. You heard Janet Yellen earlier in the show. She said, obviously, she thinks that somebody who makes $60,000 a year should be getting these relief checks, but she wasn't willing to commit to $75,000. Where do you think the cutoff should be?
Well, I think what we have done in the past and what we have promised the American people, we've said two things in the last month. We said we're going to get you $2,000, that's $600 plus $1,400. And what we're going to do is say that everybody, a single person, individual, $75,000 or lower, and a couple of $150,000 or lower will be eligible for that full $2,000, $600 plus $1,400. Now, when people said we don't want rich people to get that benefit, I understand that. I agree. And what we need to do is have a strong cliff so it doesn't kind of spill over to people making $300,000. And that's what I support. And that's what I think most people understand. But to say to a worker in Vermont or California or any place else that if you're making, $52,000 a year, you are too rich to get this help, the full benefit, I think that that's absurd. And it's also, from a political point of view, a little bit absurd that you would have under Trump these folks getting the benefit, but under Biden, who is fighting hard for the working class of this country, they would not get that full benefit. So I think from a policy point of view, we've got to do the right thing, and that's $75,000 and $150,000 for a couple. From a political point of view, it is absurd to be telling working class people, somebody who has a decent union job, they're making $55,000, $60,000, sorry, you're not eligible for the program. Makes no sense to me at all, nor do I think it makes sense to the American people.
So those were the comments from Bernie Sanders. Folks, let me know what you think. Now let's take a look at a very interesting clip from Pete Buttigieg, who was interviewed today. So folks, let's hear from the United States Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, and hear what he had to say about Senator Bernie Sanders' comments. Let's check it out.
What you're hearing from Republicans is the size of the package, that it's just too big. And it's not just Republicans saying that. Larry Summers, NEC Director for President Obama, Treasury Secretary for President Clinton, argued this week that it's too big, the economy doesn't need it. And then he added this. He said if the stimulus proposal is enacted, Congress will have committed 15% of GDP with essentially no increase in public investment to address these challenges. After resolving the coronavirus crisis, how will political and economic space be found for the public investments that should be the nation's highest priority? What he's arguing is that what we're going to put at risk is the ambitious infrastructure investment you're pushing as Transportation Secretary.
Well, there's no question that we have to do many things at once. And if you look at the way that economists have responded to this proposal, you've seen economic advisors from the last 4 administrations. Think about what that means. That's Clinton, Bush, Obama, and even Trump saying that we need to do this. You've got Moody's saying that we could have 4 million fewer jobs if we don't act now. And we're operating in a time of historically low interest rates. This is a moment where the greatest risk we could take, as the president has said, is not the risk of doing too much, it's the risk of doing too little.
And folks, what you saw so far was essentially Pete Buttigieg setting up the foundation, if you will, for the support of the package. But folks, this is where things get really interesting. You come to my channel to read between the lines, to help you read between the lines. And folks, reading between the lines, I can see that the Democrats are strategically getting behind the independent Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont to try and do some of the most ambitious things from the American Rescue Plan. Now, let's be clear. They are not going to win every single battle. But folks, let's be completely honest. What does Pete Buttigieg, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, have to do with stimulus? Almost nothing. Although he was asked to comment on the recovery of the airline industry, and he did comment on that in this particular interview. And by the way, I'll provide you with a link to this interview in the description section below so you can check out the whole interview. But listen closely to how Pete Buttigieg is essentially on camera supports Bernie Sanders as the Democratic Party essentially tries to become united, get together in the public perception of the importance of the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. Very, very fascinating to see the way they're approaching this politically, strategically, as well as from a public relations standpoint. Let's resume this and let's listen to what Pete Buttigieg said today.
That's what you're hearing from a lot of progressive Democrats as well. One of your fellow candidates last year, Bernie Sanders, Senator Bernie Sanders, is addressing the $1,400 stimulus payments to each family. President Biden said he's firm on the $1,400, but he might be lowering the income threshold. Here's what the senator had to say about that. I strongly oppose lowering income eligibility for direct payments from $75,000 to $50,000 for individuals and $150,000 to $100,000 for couples. In these difficult times, all working class people deserve the full $1,400. Last I heard, someone making $55,000 a year is not rich. Your response?
It's a really good point from the senator. Look, you got hardworking families out there. You got an ER nurse or a firefighter in that 60 range. I think it's really important that we are taking care of working families. That's obviously something that is being discussed and in this process going back and forth with Congress, and there needs to be robust support.
But if that's what it takes to pass the bill, lowering the threshold, it's worth it?
Look, there's active conversation going on right now, obviously, but the bottom line is we've got to support as many Americans as we can, as robustly as we can, and as quickly as we can. Time is of the essence. And, you know, part of what was a real struggle the last time we faced a major economic challenge in 2009 was a sense that there needed to, if there had been more political will in Washington to do more, the economy might have recovered more quickly. You look at the jobs numbers now, about half of those 20-some million jobs that we lost haven't come back. We are in much more precarious situation than we were a decade ago. We've got to act.
Your transportation secretary.
So, folks, in the rest of this interview, Pete Buttigieg does talk about what needs to be done as far as the airline industry is concerned. So you can definitely check out the video. But, folks, the thing that I find the most fascinating is they're all making a case for big, bold, massive stimulus. I would say the only outlier from the Democratic Party happens to be the conservative Senator Joe Manchin, who has his own concerns. And this is we're sort of setting up for the passage of a large bill with some adjustments without any Republican support. But I have to tell you that the Democratic Party is essentially letting Bernie Sanders take the lead in the push for the $1,400 stimulus check to the same income levels, not lowering the threshold. And Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is also supporting this. And you can see, you saw my interview earlier today analyzing Janet Yellen, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, talking about the importance of getting this money out to people. And what's super interesting, and folks, this is important, okay, are you ready for this? None of them, not Joe Manchin, not Janet Yellen, even President Biden, none of them, including Pete Buttigieg, have essentially thrown out a number for the lower income threshold. So in other words, they're sort of throwing this out there, but no one wants to be sort of the person who proposes an income threshold, because politically that's going to be very damaging, and that'll give opponents ammunition to say, hey, you're the one who resulted in less people getting a check. So the Republicans are sort of playing this game. By the way, if you appreciate my analysis, please click like, please subscribe, please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. The Republicans are playing the game and saying, hey, let's be more fiscally responsible. The Democrats are saying, no, we want to be popular, and if you make us fiscally responsible, you'll later say that we didn't help as many people. So it's almost like a game of cat and mouse. Let me know what you think. Again, please give me a like, please subscribe, please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. Hope you appreciated this analysis. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.